with the ball. And third one will laminate breathing skill.
It's great chance to have the time to stay with you, and I think we have a great time together to talk two topics. And I can see you guys are really engaged in my classes, most of you. And I'm so enjoying to have the time with you, and hope that you have the great future and have the great professional career and everything. All you have the best life in the future.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Already our short-term clinical training program in Taiwan is a very valuable experience. In Taiwan, while I spend my day 3 weeks in here, I have a lot of lessons that I got in here, such as infant healthcare, evidence-based practice, traditional Chinese medicine, and a lot that I got in here. And in here, I can improve my English language, and I can learn a little Chinese language. And I hope in the future, University and Sari Mulia University will collaborate, continue, and more students will participate in this program. Thank you.
Being a nursing student who had the opportunity to take part in the student exchange program from Sari Mulia University to University was a very valuable experience for me. Here, I get a lot of valuable experience and new things, especially in the field of maternity nursing. It also can be honed my ability to speak English and learn a little Taiwanese, and get new friends from various countries in the world, and can be learn about new culture and saw some beautiful places in Taiwan. And this program can open my mind to travel and study to another country. I hope Sari Mulia University can be join a nice relationship with Queen University and another university in the world.
你好, Wajah Rabiatul Adamiyah. I'm here to tell you about what I get while studying at University. And number one, knowledge of obstetric science, and then get learn practice breastfeeding and right position breastfeeding. Get learn practice infant massage, get lesson about infection control, get Chinese lesson. I can see from Huang University, campus environment is clean and orderly, and facilities are complete. That's my experience during here. 谢谢.
Hello, my name is Irma. I'm a midwifery student from Sari Mulia University. My experience about this university is I got so much experience here, like how to do infant massage. It makes baby relax and makes baby happy and makes a mother and a baby have a stronger bonding. And I learned what is spiritual nursing and how to do spiritual nursing here, and so many experience and a learning lesson I have a new thing I know in Taiwan is Taiwan's people is very kind person, and they are so friendly to us. But here, I have a new thing in here is if you search water for was after P in here is no, you can find the water here because I think they didn't use water for was after P. It's a new experience for me and it's so interesting, but I will remember it forever because it's so different in Indonesia. And I hope with the cooperation between Queen University and Sari Mulia University, it can make this campus ever been better than before. And I hope Sari Mulia University can be
Hello.
Hello, Abhi. Good
Hi.
morning.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, how are you, Abhi? Yeah,
I'm
good.
good.
Hello, this is Hsiao-Ling.
Hi, I'm Abhi.
Yeah, Abhi,
Hello.
thank you very much, yeah, that you can join in this. Hey, Huang, yeah, how are you?
You are breaking up. I can't hear you, Agustinus.
Yeah. Faisal will operate. Faisal will lead this agenda, Abhi.
Okay.
We will start at 10 a.m. Yeah. Prof. Huang, hello. Good morning, Prof. Huang. How are you?
Fine, thank you. And you?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm good.
Also,
Thank you.
Yeah,
Prof. Abhi. I am Udiansyah. Hi.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Hi, Prof.
Yeah. Prof.
Hello,
Abhi
Professor
and
Abhi.
Prof. Huang. Prof. Udiansyah is the head of education services in region Kalimantan. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
so we are happy because he can join in this international webinar. Yeah.
Good.
And how is the weather in
we are still waiting our colleagues. The weather in Banjarmasin, Kalimantan is quite warm, quite warm. It's really warm.
Yeah.
And how about in Taipei, Prof. Huang?
In Taiwan, it seems to it's quite hot, and we normally reach to 38 degree lunchtime. Pretty much hot, and we need air conditioning all day.
Yeah.
But our campus is empty now because all the students got the summer holiday now.
Yeah. But in Banjarmasin, normally 28 to 29 degrees Celsius. Yeah, well, it's quite warm also. Is Abhi?
Yeah, I'm indoors all the time. So it's air conditioned most of the time. But it's a bit hot, but not out of the ordinary.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And Pak Faisal, our friend Anatoly.
Yes, sir.
How about Anatoly?
I will check the participants.
Okay. Yeah.
Professor, Mr. Anatoly hasn't joined yet, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, but all the other speakers have joined with us.
Prof. Abhi. Yeah. Okay. How yeah, Prof. Abhi, Prof. Huang, and
Yes.
also Prof. Udiansyah. I just got the information from the committee that the numbers of participants are 1,753
Oh,
from
wow.
10 countries. Yeah, 1,753. Yeah,
Excellent.
and especially from Indonesia, all participants from 34 provinces. Yeah, all follow in this international webinar.
Amazing.
That's
Yeah,
great.
thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the international webinar hosted by Universitas Sari Mulia, Banjarmasin, with our topic today is strategy to strengthen universities to enter new normal during the COVID-19 pandemic. So, for your information, we have more than 1,000 participants from 10 countries, including Philippines, Taiwan, India, Cambodia, Malaysia, Laos, Finlandia, Thailand, Timor-Leste, and also Indonesia for participating in today's webinar. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoy this webinar. And also, we hope with this webinar, we will find some of recommendations for higher education institutions to carry on with teaching and learning activities during this pandemic, and as well on how to address to future, because more than 1 billion students and youth in the world are affected by school and universities closure due to the COVID-19 outbreak. Okay, before we start, let me give some agendas today. So our first agenda is singing Indonesia national anthem with the title Indonesia Raya. And then our second agenda is Universitas Sari Mulia International Webinar Information. And then we have introducing speakers in this webinar, and after that we have welcome speech by the President of Universitas Sari Mulia, Dr. Haji Raden Sudarto, WWSPOG, and then we have presentation by the speakers and discussion session, of course. And before we close our webinar today, we have message from the steering committee, Anggota Study, SSIT, M.Pd, MKes, as Vice President for Academic Matters and Student Affairs of Universitas Sari Mulia. So that's all the agendas today. So right, let's start with first agenda, with singing our national anthem with the title Indonesia Raya. So ladies and gentlemen, take your time. Thank you very much. So now I would like to inform you about this webinar today. So during the presentation, you may ask any question related to the topic by clicking question link in your chat box. So the moderator will choose your question by the link. And your link attendance list and evaluation form will be shared at 1 p.m. GMT 8. Of course, your certificate will be sent to your email in 2 weeks after you fill out the evaluation form after this webinar ends. And all the materials of the speakers can be downloaded on the website www.unism.ac.id. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Nur Rahmadani, for opening our webinar today. So here I am also the moderator of this webinar with Mrs. Nur Rahmadani. My name is Faisal Herman M.Pd. And in this section, I will introduce to all the participants about all our speakers in this international webinar. Our first speaker, we have Professor Dr. Insinyur Haji Udiansyah, M.Si. Hello, Professor Udiansyah. Good morning. All right, Professor Udiansyah is the head of Higher Education Services, Region 11, Kalimantan, Indonesia. And for your information, Higher Education Services is an institution which coordinates all of the private universities in one region in Indonesia. And in this case, Region 11 is in the region of Kalimantan. And then our second speaker, we have Professor Abhi Veerakumasivam from Sunway University, Malaysia.
Hello.
Good morning, Professor.
Hi, how are you? Greetings
nice to meet
from
you
Malaysia.
again.
Apa kabar?
All right. So Professor Abhi is will talk about the learning strategy in the university during the COVID-19 pandemic. So Professor Abhi Veerakumasivam will talk about the policy about learning strategy during this pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. And our third speaker will be Mr. Anatoly Oleksiyenko, Ph.D. He is from the Hong Kong University, and he is going to deliver a material with the topic, what should universities do next to mitigate future pandemic? Hello, has Mr. Oleksiyenko joined us?
Yes, I'm here.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hello.
Hello,
Mr.
good morning,
Anatoly.
Dr. Anatoly.
Hi.
How are you?
Very well,
How
thank
are
you. Can you hear me well?
Okay. All right. Thank you for joining us for, today.
Thank you for inviting.
All right. And Mr. Anatoly will talk about, yeah, I have mentioned your topic earlier. And our fourth presenter will be Dr. Agustinus Hermino, M.Pd. He is from Sari Mulia University. Hello, Dr. Agustinus.
Hi.
Morning.
Yeah. Morning. Yeah, nice to meet you. Yeah, nice to meet
you too. And Dr. Agustinus is Vice President of Cooperation and Human Resources Affairs of Universitas Sari Mulia. And he is going to talk about strengthening human resources in the university during the COVID-19 pandemic. And then our fifth speaker, we have Professor Hsiao-Ling Huang. Hello, Professor. Okay, so by the way, thank you very much for joining us today for all the speakers. And Professor Hsiao-Ling Huang, she is from Yuanpei University of Medical Technology, Taiwan. And he is going to deliver the material with the topic strengthening student strategies in learning to improve student academic performance during the COVID-19 pandemic. So she will focus on the learning strategy, while Professor Abhi will focus on the policy of the learning strategy. Okay, so I say welcome for all the speakers in this international webinar, and thank you very much one more time for joining us today. All right, without any further ado, let's get to next agenda. there will be welcome speech by our president or rector of Sari Mulia University, Dr. Haji Raden Sudarto WWSPOG.
Good morning and the best wish to all of us. The Honorable Professor Dr. Engineer Haji Udiansyah, Magister since as head and Higher Services Region 11 Kalimantan, Indonesia. Professor Abhi Veerakumasivam, Ph.D. from Sunway, University Malaysia. Mr. Anatoly Oleksiyenko, Ph.D. from Hong Kong University, Hong Kong. Mrs. Professor Hsiao-Ling Huang from Yuanpei University of Medical Technology, Taiwan. Dr. Engineer Agustinus Hermino, M.Pd, Vice President of Universitas Sari Mulia, Banjarmasin, Indonesia. Vice President 1, Vice President 2, Dean, Head of Department, and Head of Education. Praise to God for all His blessing and gift, so we can gather together to healthy condition on the international webinar event with the theme Strategy and Strengthen University to Enter into Normal During COVID-19 Pandemic. This international webinar is our collaboration with the Sari Mulia, Wilayah Services Region 11 Kalimantan, Yuanpei University of Medical Technology, Taiwan, the Hong Kong University, and Sunway University, Malaysia. This webinar is expected to provide insight to strengthen education and strategy entering the new normal. As we know, the COVID-19 pandemic is still very difficult to control, so that today we face the new normal, and this is a solution for us to get back activity to battle the COVID-19 pandemic. Likewise, the level of higher education. It is hoped that in new normal, will be able to organize learning will still obey the health protocol. Therefore, cross-country discussion are needed about strategy to improve quality of education in the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you to the speaker who have been willing to spend the time between business and share to knowledge. We want to thank all committee members who have worked hard to prepare everything in this international webinar to run well, to achieve and the goal expected contributed on the community, especially in the COVID-19 pandemic. We apologize if there are deficiencies and organizers to webinar. To participation of the national webinar, we congratulate you on taking part in this full series event, and hopefully it will be useful. This is I can say. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much for our rector for welcoming all the participants and also the speakers in our international webinar today. And hopefully all of you will enjoy this webinar, and hopefully you will get something new, which is knowledge or experience by this webinar. All right, so let's get to the next agenda. There will be our first speaker, Professor Dr. Udiansyah, who will talk about strategy to facilitate the quality of higher education in the COVID-19 pandemic. And before he delivers the material, let me read his curriculum vitae first. Okay, his name is Professor Dr. Insinyur Haji Udiansyah, M.Si, and then his email is kasiudiansyah@yahoo.co.id. So if you need to contact him, you can send him email by this email. So if you need this email, you can write this down on your paper. And he works at Higher Education Services, Region 11, Kalimantan, Indonesia, as the head of the institution, the head of Higher Education Services, Region 11, Kalimantan, Indonesia. And also he obtained his doctoral degree from Laguna, the Philippines. So Professor Udiansyah, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, so please, Professor, time is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Faisal. Good morning, everybody. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Prof. Huang, Prof. Abhi, Dr. Anatoly, and Dr. Agus. Thank you very much. We are together right now. Nice to meet you. I would like to talk about our strategy to facilitating the quality of higher education institution in the COVID pandemic era right now. Because maybe the next slide. The next slide. Hello. Okay. Yes, this is the outline. Yes, and I would like first I would like to talk about our task, main task in this institution. Then the impact of COVID-19 pandemic to higher education institution in in Kalimantan. Then there are also government policy and strategy of our service. The next slide. Yeah, this is our main task in our institution is to facilitating the higher education institution to improve their quality. Yeah, because in Indonesia there are almost maybe more than 4,500 university. Yeah, in Kalimantan there are 170 university. Yeah, this is academy, maybe polytechnic, something like that. So, but it is very small university, very small academy. There are maybe more 70%, the student only less than 1,000 students. That's the problem. But the university, the polytechnic, the academy, sometimes is belong to the same owner. Maybe one owner has maybe 2 or 3 universities, something like that. But again, the student is very small, less than 1,000. The next slide. The impact of the COVID-19 to university, we already conducted the survey. This is there are total respondent 130 university. This during May, we have the result already. Next slide. This is the mitigation of university to their student. For example, there are only 2 universities to support. This is to support the international student. They are monitoring the overseas student. Maybe this is the good university has sent student to abroad, something like that. So they gave the university gave the scholarship to the student. This during pandemic era. There are 11%. Now also already there are 17% to discounted tuition fee, deducted tuition fee. There are 18%. The university give support logistic to the student. Also, there are 20% to give health service, physical service, something like that. Give internet connection support, because during the pandemic era, the studying is not come to campus, but studying from house. There are 62%. The university doing student tracking. Wow, where there are students right now. Now also the registration already implemented by 81%, and the last one is e-learning already doing by all respondents. Next slide. This is the policy of lecturer to administration staff. I think this is also suitable by the policy of the government. Due to the staff should be work from home, the university give internet connection support, but only 34%. Yeah. There are also not all university doing implemented work from home. There are 2% still come to campus, something like that. Yeah. The next slide. This is the creativity during the university, during the creativity of universities during the pandemic era. There are 40% just business as usual. There are no action. But there are 29% will a learning facility. I think this is also good. The pandemic era is a good give innovation to the university to building the learning facility. If there is no pandemic era, might be nothing. Yeah, those are the production face cell and face mask production. That during the pandemic era, many universities, like there are for mass production, there are 17% production face mask. The next slide. This is the impact of the institution. Right now, there are no action. There are no impact to the pandemic era. In the university, there are 21%, but already 5% delaying the salary to the lecturer, to the academic staff, something like that. Also, there are 8% already deducted the salary of the lecturer, academic staff, and there are 45% reallocation the budgeting. Maybe they want to build the campus, but due to the pandemic era, right now they are reallocation the budget, maybe to pay the salary for the staff, for the lecturer, something like that. Then already there are most than 70% already cancel their program. Maybe, for example, building the campus, they cancel like that. Next slide. This is the initiative, the university for new student admission. There are only 2% university on schedule. Very good schedule, I think, because this is also the new student. Is maybe the next slide later. We can also there are tuition fee deduction. Only 1% delaying starting the semester because usually the starting the semester is usually is on September, the first week of September, but maybe they are already planned to delaying the starting the semester. Maybe something the last of September, something maybe the first week of October, depending this COVID-19 pandemic. There are already around a quarter percent online registration test. Also pre-admission fee. So there are 1% to deduction tuition fee. Now there are free admission fee. So the delay, there are 40% delaying registration limit. This is the relationship between the first slide. There are already 2% already got their target for new student. Yeah? More than their target. There are 2%. There are only also 2%, around 75 to 100. Also there are 2%, 50 to 75. So mostly there are 5% less student. I think this is also why, because maybe the parent of the student already not get job anymore. So that's why they're delaying to applying their son, their children to the university. But again, the government also supply the KIP kuliah, maybe the scholarship for the student for private university in Kalimantan, 300% up. Next slide. This is again the government policy. Until right now, school studying still from home, especially for the higher education institution. Yeah. Also, right now we still work from home. 50% employee working shift are allowing work to the office. So this is a policy. If the university want to their student come to the campus, it should be get a permit from the authority of the COVID-19 affair. The next slide. I think this is next slide. Yeah. Again, in our topic, my topic is to how to give the facilitating to the university to improve their quality should be again we try to get the standard of the accreditation, because the quality of the quality of the higher education should be accreditation indicator. The accreditation indicator should be just a standard. There are 9 standards. This is the first vision and mission, higher education institute governance, student, human resources, budgeting, curriculum and academic, research, extension, and outcome. Again, our focusing should be in this accreditation standard. But for the student, we cannot influence more than to the university. But human resources, for example, the lecturer, how to the lecturer hire their rank, for example, we facilitating them. The curriculum, academic, right now, as freedom studying, our new ministry, there are program new ministry, freedom studying, campus Merdeka, something like that. We try to facilitate research. The government still give research funding to the lecturer. Also, we are still give the workshop training to the student. Again, still, but the method is also online. Extension, like that. Then I think there are that we facilitating to the university. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is human resources, research, extension, academic, accreditation, and develop university and study program. For example, how to develop university and study program service. Right now, the government already opened the application, the admission. Then again, also based on online service. How to give, because as mentioned before, many university is very small. That the university belong to the, there are 3 university belong to one owner, one foundation. Now the government want to give, make it a merger or union, some university, maybe 2 or 3 university, and merge them and union them and give incentive to the university. Before, the government give incentive if we want, if the like Sari Mulia University, if they want to merge or union the university to university, this to be university, for example, the academic and to one academic nurse, then they want to make a university then should be give a minimal to 5 study program, for example. But I just propose to the ministry, if you want to make some merge something like that, there are no requirement anymore. Just merge something like that. Then this is the real incentive for the to the university. This is already also proposed, maybe because it is not our authority. Maybe the ministry will release a new policy for give the university incentive, and other can merge of the university is small, more incentive. Okay, the next slide.
Sorry, Professor. I'm sorry. 5 minutes remaining.
Maybe it's already finished.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you very much for your attention. Maybe the discussion, I wait for your question. Thank you very much for all of you.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Udiansyah, by delivering your presentation about strategy to facilitate higher education during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think it is really interesting for us to discuss, because you showed us some statistics about the impact of COVID-19 and also what some universities have done to face the COVID-19 pandemic. Some of universities using e-learning to manage the learning and teaching process, and also some of universities give the internet connection, free internet connection for the students, and also regarding the new students enters, some universities delaying the registration date, and I think this is really a big impact of COVID-19 pandemic. So after this, we need to also know how the policy of the learning strategies in other countries, because Professor Udiansyah has just told us about the policy implemented in Indonesia. But what about in other countries? So we can move to our next speaker. But before we move to our speaker, I want to remind you again, if you have any question, please fill the question, or you can put your question on the Q&A chat box or on the link that has been sent by the committee. Maybe please, the committee, you can send the link again so the participants can ask the question to Professor Udiansyah related to the material that he just presented earlier. All right, so, and I want to remind you also about the attendance list. So the committee will send the attendance list link 30 minutes before this webinar ends. All right, so let's get to the next presenter. We have Professor Abhi Veerakumasivam, who will talk about the learning strategy in the university. He will focus on the policy of learning strategy, especially in maybe in Malaysian context or in general. Okay, so I think Professor Abhi. Hello, Professor Abhi.
Hello, hi.
Okay, so would you like to share your own material, or should
I think it'll be probably easier for me to do that. But before I share the slide, I think on your side you need to stop sharing.
Okay. Yeah. But before you share your slide, let me read your short curriculum vitae. Okay. All right. Okay. So this is Professor Abhi Veerakumasivam. He is a cancer geneticist and the head of the Department of Biological Sciences at Sunway University, and he obtained his Ph.D. from the University of Cambridge. That's really cool, I think. Really amazing. And he is also as a co-chair of the Asian Young Scientists Network and also the chair of the International Network for Government Sciences Advice Asia. Okay, he is really active professor in some organizations, and he also champions science leadership in the region. And this is really amazing. I talked to you that in 2016 he became the first Asian to be crowned as the world's best science communicator. That's really amazing, Professor.
Thank you, Faisal.
And this is the CV, short CV of Professor Abhi. His name is Professor Abhi Veerakumasivam from Sunway University. He worked at Sunway University, and he is as the head of Department of Biological Sciences. And if you need to contact him, you can send him by email abhi.veerakumasivam@gmail.com or abhi@sunway.edu.my. All right, is that correct, Professor?
It is right. It's very good.
Okay.
And I guess it probably makes more sense to email the participants or put it out there because they might not get it when you say it. So maybe typing it in. I will probably do that after this. But
Okay,
yeah,
so
you're welcome.
thank you very much. So I think you are really ready to present your material.
Yeah.
So please, Professor, time is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Agus, obviously, for facilitating this invitation, and to all the panelists and the previous speakers. Thank you very much. It's ironically, it is my first time actually addressing people in Kalimantan, so this is very exciting for me. So as yeah, cool, and it's quite nice to actually talk about Kalimantan besides actually complaining about haze. When we are in Kuala Lumpur, when we talk about Kalimantan, it's usually when we are suffering from haze. But today it's blue skies, so that's good. Anyway, one of the things that I really feel that I wanted to sort of as a disclaimer is I don't think anybody here can actually pretend to know what is actually the best policy or what policies should work, because even in countries in Europe, in America, where you think that they have all the money to invest and they actually have all the resources and all the science to actually evidence their policies, they seem to be doing worse than us. So today, in my perspective, I'm going to share with you some of the opportunities where we can actually engage policymakers, but also share with you some of the things that we are doing here in Malaysia and what the policymakers are doing. And to a certain extent, I think, in this region, Malaysia, Taiwan, Korea, and quite a number of countries, and I'm sure within Indonesia, certain regions are probably doing better than, Europe and America themselves. So one of the first things I thought I will actually just plug in, and since I was told by Agus, there are lots of young academics and students and researchers who are really excited to get a glimpse of what's actually happening around the world and the opportunities out there. So as Faisal had mentioned earlier, one of the organizations in which I represent is called the International Network for Government Science Advice, which is actually led by senior science advisors to the various different prime ministers around the world. But what they have is regional chapters, and I chair the Asia chapter. And one of the things that we have done, and I would actually recommend anybody who's interested in seeing how and what can be done within the universities or regions, is to go online into ingsa.org/COVID, because we have actually established a whole essentially a dashboard for you to get all kinds of information regarding COVID-19 and the latest evidences in science, and not just Europe and America centric, but actually around the world. And I think this is one of the things that I think to a certain extent COVID-19 has changed. It's made us realize that, number one, the West does not actually have all the solutions, and number two, basically the solutions might actually be amongst us, right? And that is why it is so important that we actually contribute and share knowledge. And I like to congratulate the organizers of this event for creating, because for example, listening to Prof. Udiansyah's presentation, I was like, wow, so much of data is being collected, and I was thinking maybe, I could do that in Malaysia too. I'm just going to go very quickly because I think it's important to appreciate how detrimental the COVID impact is. And when you think about policies is not necessarily the best evidence that is actually there, but it's actually best evidence that can actually solve what is perceived as the problem. And so, as we know, with COVID-19, expected 25 million jobs or more being lost, the income, trillion US dollars globally lost, and 35 million are going to be additionally driven to poverty. This is the data from the CIMB ASEAN Research Institute, shows that no country in ASEAN will escape the COVID-19 in the context of economics. So obviously some countries like Indonesia, Laos, and Brunei, and Malaysia seem to at least have a bit more resilience. But you can see many of our various different family members of ASEAN will be feeling the pinch a lot more than we do. But the thing is that actually COVID-19 is not the main sort of factor. I always call COVID-19 is more like a disruptor. In fact, it just accelerated the changes that we knew was actually coming. Those jobs were going to be lost anyway. The difference is that COVID-19 forced us to actually see reality a lot faster. We have heard about Industry 4.0 and how jobs are going to change and technologies are going to change, and how various different things, topics, robotics, augmented reality, big data analytics is going to change the way we live. But also, COVID-19 has taught us about the great inequalities that there are there. If you notice, in the first few months of COVID-19, everyone says COVID-19 does not discriminate. COVID-19 affects everybody. It is true, the virus doesn't discriminate. But today, after 4, 5 months, 6 months into the pandemic, we realize that the inequalities that exist in society means that certain ethnicities, certain economic sectors, certain individuals are at a higher and greater risk of suffering from the impact, be it the impact of the disease or the impact of the economy itself. So one of the questions that we really need to think about is also, as we try to find solutions for specific problems, are we actually addressing the systemic problem of inequality? Inequality in gender, inequality in between countries, inequality in terms of ethnicity, inequalities in terms of religion, inequalities from different economic sectors. In Malaysia, generally, one of the reasons why it has been effective is because to a certain extent, our policies haven't been very democratic. A lot of the decisions have been top down. So decisions were able to be made very quickly, not polling people, oh, would you like to wear a mask or not? But actually deciding, essentially you need to wear a mask and you need to, isolate. And the lockdowns and various different things have been very, very efficiently done, right? But the question, of course, over time is COVID-19 the biggest problem, or actually the lockdowns and the economic restrictions because of the strategies to mitigate COVID-19 that becomes a problem. And this is where basically policymakers, all right, and advisors have to balance between the pros and the cons, and it's also between short-term and long-term. Within the higher education sector, because this is exactly what we are discussing today, the Ministry of Higher Education, Kementerian Pendidikan Tinggi, and the agency Kelayakan Malaysia, which is the accreditation body in Malaysia. They are obviously governed by the Security Council, but they have been advising us how the first couple of days when COVID-19 was, essentially announced as a pandemic and that Malaysia was going into a lockdown, the first response by the ministry was to say, no teaching, online or face-to-face, everyone go back home and what have you. But when reality stuck after a couple of days, they then realized that actually no teaching and just closing down was not going to end, because this was not a 1 week problem or a 2 week problem. As we all now know, it's not even a few months problem, it's going to be years in problem. And so the question is, how can we make sure that our lives continue to progress while actually ensuring the safety of individuals? And so the ministry then started coming up with various different measures, allowing for online education, and then followed by ensuring that now, from yesterday onwards, universities were allowed to bring in our pre-university students, as long as social distancing was allowed. So it's been a long step, and we also know that as soon as the R0, sort of spikes, where there's an increase in the incidence of the cases, I'm sure a lot of the economic sectors will also shut. So it's also the responsibility of the society and the industry to ensure that we don't exploit when the government actually loosens the regulations. Another thing that the government has done, and this is because of consultation with the Ministry of Finance, is actually in Malay, it's Pelanjana Semula Ekonomi Negara, which is Penjana, which is a multi-billion-dollar stimuli package by the Ministry of Finance to actually do three things. One is to be able to empower people, because we know that top-down policies work, but as the economy grows and the economy is changing into gig economy and various different, sort of informal economy, that it is not enough for the government to create jobs, but actually to empower people to create those jobs. So the first one is memperkasakan rakyat. Then the other one is to propel businesses, to melonjakkan perniagaan. So it is to, I'm just assuming my bahasa Malaysia could be understood by Indonesians. My friends from Indonesia always say, you guys can understand me, but I cannot understand your bahasa Indonesia. So you guys are obviously way more talented than I am. And finally, a plan to stimulate the economy. And so in the last few months, it's, from initially, it's all about safety. We don't want people to die. We want to reduce the risk, and trying to make sure our campuses are all free of COVID-19. Now we are shifting to a new, sort of mode, which is to say, yes, safety is really important, but we also need to think about business sustainability, the sustainability of the universities, the sustainability of the lives, including students, right? Many students are expecting to graduate and then go out there and actually work and what have you. So when we talk about policies, and this is something that I want everyone to understand, one of the times when I actually got into policy advice, I had this romantic idea that, okay, I know how to communicate, I have big eyes, so people will listen to me. But the reality is that politicians basically have many different factors and facets. And this particular comic says, the politician is telling the researcher, while doing the research, keep in mind that there are only two kinds of facts, those that support my position and those that are inconclusive. So one of the things that when we talk about science advice and how do we communicate to politicians is basically knowledge brokerage. How can we actually package evidence like what Prof. Udiansyah has actually provided, which is such powerful evidence? But for policymakers to actually say, all right, this is really good, I can understand how this is going to help my people, you need to find solutions packaged to those policies. So what is also evident is basically sometimes you cannot actually wait for the policies. What we have realized with the Ministry of Higher Education is that they have kept their policies very, very broad, but it's up to organizations and leading organizations to develop their standard operating procedures, develop their processes, and then 2 or 3 months later, the ministry will actually look at what you're doing and say, okay, this looks like the best thing. Because the fact is that this is a completely unprecedented situation. Nobody around the world knows what's going to happen, in the next 2 weeks. Latest papers have come out. We are still not sure that even if a vaccine is available, whether individuals will have the immunity, whether herd immunity is even possible. So in the context of education, the next few minutes, Faisal, how many more minutes do I have?
You still have more than 5 minutes.
Okay, great. More than 5 minutes. I assume it's 10 minutes. I'm just joking. I'll stick to the time.
Actually, you have 15 minutes.
Yeah.
From the beginning.
Is to actually think about the impact on universities. And when you talk about impact on universities, what are our roles in the universities to actually do things right, to ensure that we can inform those policies? And one of the things, so this is Sunway University, where I teach. So our branding and was very smart because what they did was they created all these cutouts. So now we have Taylor Swift, Ed Sheeran, Lionel Messi, all in our campus at the moment. Because what happens is that when students come in, they all still want to sit together. I think and I think you learn from the other speakers later on. Students miss the campus environment, although when they're in campus, they're always complaining they want online. But when they were all in online, after a few months, they all wanted to come back. So we've come up with new solutions, how to stop people from sitting together. And, these are just examples of it. One of the next things was obviously online education. People have been talking about online education and blended education for the last, 10 years. But at Sunway University, when we had to close, within 2 weeks, we were able to launch all of this. And that is because the university invests a lot on IT. And so this is some of the things. Sometimes you think that during crisis, you need to save money. But actually, sometimes you actually have to invest a lot more to actually have the first mover advantage. But what's also evident is basically this COVID-19 has taught us, and it's something that I know it's going to shape future policy, is education and how education is actually seen. I think it's becoming more and more clear that the education that we have hasn't changed or evolved for too long. And so how can we actually think about making it? We talk about personalized medicine, precision engineering. Now we talk about personalized education, realizing that every student is actually unique. And at Sunway, what we are doing now, and it's something that even the government and ministry and whatever it is actually embracing, that this is probably the best solution, which is a combination of face-to-face and online. One of the things that you have to understand in policies is that today's world is very different than what it was 20 years ago. Today's world, we have everybody is an expert, even if you are an expert of nothing, right? It's still an expert. You are still an expert of being an expert of nothing. And everybody's opinion, it matters. Everybody has got a voice and everybody wants to be heard. And so one of the things that we think the future of education and education policies have to move in a place where there's greater autonomy and flexibility on the part of the student, as well as on the part of the education institutions. So I love this Massachusetts model. It's not my model, of equity and excellence. And it talks about how it's about building competency, the flexible learning, how it has to be student driven, but also building, using different technologies to actually help the student to achieve where they want to be. But also the real life, authentic learning experience that cannot be replaced by just online, work. I'm sure the professor will be talking later on assessment, but the policy on assessment is something that we seriously need to change. And I like the one at the bottom here, which is that we have to think about progress and not results. How much are we progressing the individuals that we educate rather than an artificial result like A, B, C, D that we actually look at? And this is where the human skills, it's a lot more than just knowledge. So my final slides here are really a reflection of a few things. Where are we going then? So we have these policies are interchangeable. We understand that's going to be autonomy and flexible. Where are we going as universities? And I'd like to leave you, with some of these, things that we can be very, very proud of. So, in ASEAN, we have quite a number of top ASEAN universities that are actually doing really, really well. But what is this increase in number mean? Is it truly an increase in quality? Does this actually affect the individual's experience when a university moves from 150 to 100? Has the students' experience actually improved? Have they got a better quality education? So on a policy level, one of the things that we are really concerned is actually the hijacking of purpose of universities. And in the context of research, we know we have the problem of research misconduct, right? Where there's increase of retractions, there's increase of all kinds of irresponsible practices. And what we have done now is to create a module, which I know Agustinus has been trained in it, we're thinking that as policies, we need to think about what is our purpose, your purpose, and how can we shape policies. So my advice to all of you, the first thing is seize opportunities. So one thing at COVID-19 is every day there's a new opportunity. For example, just last week, the government of Malaysia has announced 2 billion ringgit to set up micro-credential and short courses for people who lost a job to come back to universities. So universities has to be very adept, and institutions have to have the policy that they can sort of pivot and change when they need to. The other thing is we got to care. We got to think about this because, for example, even though we are proud of our Malaysian institutions, we have this story of this Sabahan girl, obviously in Borneo, who had to go onto a tree and live on the tree to get internet connection. And of course, she became very viral and very popular, and she got a full scholarship now. But this is something we need to think about. Is education for us to have fat salaries, or is it for educators to serve humanity and our larger role? And this is where resources needs to be invested so that even when times are bad, we can actually invest on what matters, such as research. Research in what? Things like sustainable development goals. So there's actually global policies on this. And I feel, more countries working towards this might actually just mean that we might have a chance of achieving this in 2030 or somewhat. So some of the things that we're doing in Sunway, and I'll probably share it later, is such as Sunway Future X, which you can actually check, where students no longer go for classes, but now they are actually in a campus where they are educated as agripreneurs, empowering towards food self-sufficiency and, really focusing on innovation.
Sorry, Professor, time is over.
Time is over? Last few slides.
Okay, sorry.
My point is, when you talk about policies, you got to link it to impact. Because if you don't have impact, policymakers can't. And you need a lot of communication and, like I mentioned, ethics. And we put together everything. Why is it that policies can be molded? It's only if it is to serve a purpose greater than yourself. So let's embrace this challenge and celebrate our emergence, because we are collectively, a group of humans and not actually stuck within confines of national boundaries. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for Professor Abhi. That's very interesting. So when we talk about the policy and learning strategy, of course, that there's impact in economic sectors, industry, and also universities, like in Indonesia and Malaysia. I heard that there's Majelis Keselamatan Negara, like Perjana for building the economy. So, of course, I think that, in education institution, of course, there's a policy must go hand in hand to face this pandemic. Like you said, that there is no best policy, but we consider with the situation. Very interesting, Professor Abhi.
Thank you.
We will talk again in our discussion session, because we have to move to another speaker. So now we are going to move to our next speaker. He is Dr. Anatoly Oleksiyenko, Ph.D. So Dr. Anatoly is an associate professor in higher education at the University of Hong Kong. His research focus on agency of internationalization in higher education and dilemmas of governance and leadership in neoliberal and post-Soviet research universities. So with his topic today, what should universities do next to mitigate future pandemics? So hello, Dr. Anatoly, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. I'll try to share my screen. after you finish sharing yours, and then I can present my slides. But first of all, I'd like to thank everyone in Indonesia for inviting me to this talk, and especially my colleague, Dr. Agustinus Hermino, who invited me and encouraged me to make this presentation. I enjoyed listening to my colleagues in Indonesia, from Indonesia and Malaysia, who gave very comprehensive analysis of what's happening in their countries. And I'll try just to speak. I can't share my screen for some reason. Okay, I guess I can now. Right. So my presentation will primarily focus on what's happening in big cities like Hong Kong. My focus of research is on globalization and higher education, as well as on how universities that are engaged in knowledge development in countries that live through totalitarian regimes where researchers were not able to do some kinds of research or were not able to speak on certain findings in their research, how these kind of contexts actually deal with some difficulties that are created by pandemics like the one we experience at the moment. So in my presentation, I'll speak about three major issues. One is responsibility, another one is ethics, as well as civil society. I think these three major issues are interconnected, and they will define the future of the university. And let me explain what I mean by those three perspectives that are so important for the future of higher education in the crisis. First of all, responsibility. I defined a couple of questions here, as you can see in the list. And in terms of how we understand the role of the university in preparing people who take care of the society and its future. In terms of how we understand the role of people who make votes for a particular way of political direction, choices in terms of how we speak on certain issues, how we prepare those people who are in politics and actually define our agendas. And as well as professionals, people who are in the medical profession or in teaching profession or in any other profession that we certainly see become really important in tackling all these critical situations. So the universities don't often ask these questions. In social sciences and humanities, we have primary responsibility for educating citizens and people who would be shaping the whole idea of society, the nature of society, and the processes in the society. If we talk about the current crisis in most of the states, right, we can see that particular way of anxiety, the problem of exposing truth, and talking about some difficult issues in the context where we compare ourselves to others, right? So countries cannot speak on the numbers of cases, of deaths, because if we put them in these ranking tables and show who did well and who did not, certainly we can see that the anxiety among politicians among professionals who are being judged about how well they handle a particular crisis. So there is a lot of that anxiety that exists, and we don't know how we really handle this in the future to teach the next generation of politicians and professionals to handle that type of anxiety. So what are the ways to develop the critical thinking for our ability to live with the crisis and manage the crisis with that type of responsibility, where we're concerned about saving lives and solving individual problems without kind of trying just to compare whether we did better than others. At the same time, we know that meritocracy is driven by that type of comparative advantage or ability to really, understand best practices and so on. So how do we really develop no anxiety, but still, have focus or sensitivity to those kind of meritocratic skills and practices? What we also see in the current curriculum is that we don't have enough of that balance between the local and international. So on the one hand, we need to teach patriots or people who care about their motherland, about their country. But on the other hand, we also have to train people who have to be internationals, who have to take responsibility for the greater community of citizens and in the world which has open borders, encourages trade, international trade, movement of people, ideas, and images. How do we really create that meaningful balance between the local and international? And in that regard, if we take it down to the level of school or university, we know that quality, as Professor Abhi just spoke about, how we create, how we take care of quality. So the issue is like how we teach some subjects that relate to that local history, culture, comprehension of identity, language, and the balances between the local and international. How we achieve equality of quality across all these teaching institutions. It's not easy to do, and these are big policy issues. But if we take it to the level of individual institutions and their responsibility for achieving that type of quality, we talk about a number of issues that I emphasize here. First of all, there's the issue of social sciences and humanities, ability for us to develop communicative spaces where we exchange ideas across disciplines, across various representations of culture and languages, religions, and everything else that might develop a critically thinking community. We need this kind of spaces. It's not talking about curriculum in terms of niches, in terms of subjects we particularly teach for a particular unit within the course or within the curriculum, but we speak about this epistemological, but also interdisciplinary spaces where we have discussions across a variety of those issues that my previous presenter, the previous presenter was speaking about all that kind of gamut of all these important issues, but also very difficult issues that we don't understand often ourselves, because we may sit in our own niche and we don't kind of understand what our colleagues do in other academic units, centers, or departments. So besides, Hong Kong doesn't have really that particular problem empirical peer-reviewed research. But again, we often do that in niches rather than across disciplines. And with increasing political concern about how much we can talk now about, I'm afraid that we may not really be having enough of that kind of space for sharing and honest communication. Here's what comes as a very important issue in that regard is that intellectual leadership, ability of these individual professors to speak honestly, present, to tell the truth about any problem, despite all those restrictions. This is very difficult to do in social sciences and humanities, when evaluative judgments are made, where cultures are still compared, and then anxiety, as I said before, still exists. So this kind of status anxiety, comparative anxiety still exists. So how do we promote intellectual leadership? How we define intellectual leadership becomes really something very important in the future. From what we observed with the spread of the virus, right, and ability of professionals to speak honestly, as I said before, especially in places like China or Russia or some of these post-Soviet societies where the culture is not up to the standard of open and peer-reviewed communication. It's still very hierarchical and still very restricted. And the issue in terms of how we teach these new generations of professionals and politicians is something that really goes into that particular, I would say, corner of the whole discussion. Will we be able to really talk with that level of professional ethics and dignity, just to really analyze various crisis factors, as well as see interdependencies between politics, economics, education, and other important issues? To what extent we are really able to define or promote the ethical perspective with regard to the ethical concerns and standards, right? So from that point of view, I guess it's very important to remember what we are doing now, to document it and to communicate it. So the seminars like this one are very important in that regard, but also in terms of what we do to reflect on the previous cases. Hong Kong, for example, lived through the same pandemic in 2003, right? So what Hong Kong has learned was that community, professionalism were really important. Ethics was really important. So what Hong Kong lost around more than 40 people in 2003, which is much less than Toronto, for example, where I am now. So, but Hong Kong in 2020 had only I mean, there's variance in terms of telling the true number, but it's like, I guess, 5 or 7 people in 2020. So Hong Kong has learned how to handle the spread of the pandemic, while Toronto has been continuing to lose people. It's like over 1,000 now. And the issue is like how we learned, how these societies learned, what Hong Kong was learning and what Toronto, for example, was learning. Both are very advanced societies. Both are very advanced types of cities. But at the same time, the ability to be ethical and responsible in front to the society, to the community, to others in the community was driven that, you know, the professionals, medical professionals, educational professionals, management were taking all those kind of viral problems very seriously. I mean, they were very strict, very organized, and responsive to all these issues. But you know, that was also driven by ability of Hong Kong to be international. Hong Kong was learning from others. Hong Kong was looking around. Hong Kong was looking across borders and trying to understand, you know, just in terms of how it works. And in the future, I think that's really an important competence, really, just to understand what others do, how they communicate, what are the best practices, and what was learned from the past, so that kind of the present can be more informed. And I guess the same idea of remaining vigilant of you know, of what was done in the past and was successful might be really important. The last point here is pretty much about what I said about Hong Kong taking responsibility, not at the level of the government. The government was important too. I mean, the government was really important, but civil society, self-organization, ability of in smaller communities to interact and communicate and respect each other was really important. So the role of civil society is important. And I would say that in the current discourse of how we deal with this particular problem, it's the tension in some way, or reinforcement of these two viral two types of viruses. On the one hand is the infodemic, the spread of fake news or false news or unverified news or whatever, like, you know, something that that is created by our ability to generate media through all these social media channels. And on the other hand is pandemic itself, this biological, or, you know, just something that comes from this overlap of human and animal or genes context, if I am correct to say that. You see, I mean, again, even bring this kind of correct names for or definitions of what's happening with the particular virus, right? In terms of pandemic, you need to explain it well. But we also see many of these non-professionals taking the responsibility for explaining some of these medical terms, which becomes really dangerous at some point, right? And we see how politicians like Donald Trump begin to encourage that kind of global community of politicians really to generate, you know, that anxiety, but at the same time fake complacence and fake pacification, which generates more deaths in the long run. So the issue is here how we create that type of safety in the society, and how we make sure that this safety is spread across the whole society, the whole community of learners, right? Just because it might be easier to maybe easier to believe rather than just to practice, really. That, you know, that people who have higher levels of learning abilities are able to prevent both the infodemic and pandemic. Yet, I mean, this is not verifiable statement or truth to share. At the same time, our major concern is pretty much about those people who have either no access to good information or have who lack skills to understand the complexity of the information, or people who have reached that age, the aging population who have good skills but don't have the new skills to handle both the infodemic and pandemic influences. How do we make sure that we create that kind of learning environment for everyone, right? So, and in that way, what is the university infrastructure to respond to those types of challenges, right? Because we think in terms of the normal as in terms of the university as we know it. I mean, the university which used to work in stable environments and handle mass higher education, but now what is the new way to really create this infrastructure that might deal, as Professor Abhi said, with this kind of continuous, endless maybe crisis, right? Just we don't know when this may kind of finish. And
Anatoly?
Yes.
I'm sorry, the time is over.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm finishing here just to say that, you know, we have to take this responsibility and improve ethics, as well as pay attention to the civil society to the extent that these all three really come together in a meaningful but also you know, productive way to build our safer future. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Anatoly. So when we talk about what should university do next to mitigate future pandemic, of course, we talk about responsibility, ethics, and civil and security, because as we know that university or education institution are currently struggling to this pandemic, right? So there are many things that universities can do. Of course, in appreciate each other or support each other is important for us. Thanks, Dr. Anatoly. We will stop again this presentation because we have to move to another speaker. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we are going to our next speaker. He is Dr. Agustinus Hermino Supermaputra. Okay, so with his topic today is strengthening human resources in the university during the COVID-19 pandemic. So Dr. Agustinus Hermino Supermaputra, M.Pd, he is a lecturer, educational specialist, and Vice President for Human Resource and Cooperation of Universitas Sari Mulia, Banjarmasin. Halo, Dr. Agus.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, Rahma.
Okay. How are you, Dr. Agus?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, so are you ready for the presentation?
Sure, of course.
Okay, so thank you very much. You have 15 minutes to presentation. Okay, floor is yours, Dr. Agus.
Okay, thank you very much, Rahma. First, I want to say thank you very much to our colleagues, Professor Abhi, Professor Udiansyah, Dr. Anatoly, and also Professor Huang. Thank you very much that you can join in this international webinar. And also, I want to say thank you very much to all participants, wherever you are, because you can join in this international webinar conducted by the Sari Mulia University in Banjarmasin, South Kalimantan Province, Indonesia. In this session, I want to explain about the strengthening human resources in the university during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm really appreciate because Prof. Udiansyah, he already mentioned about the data, and Professor Abhi, I'm really interested with your statement that every day is the new opportunity. It's really awesome. And also, Dr. Anatoly, thank you very much because you mentioned also about the responsibility and also about the ethic, because this information is very important for the human resources. In this title, there are two main words about the strengthening and about human resources. If we talk about the strengthening, it means that we talk about the reinforce. We talk about how to improve. And if we talk about the human resources, it means that we talk about the people, about the men and women and something like that. And if we talk about the strengthening human resources in the university, it means that we talk about how to improve, how to reinforce about the people in the university, especially in the during the COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah, next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah, all of you can see in this slide, university challenges during the COVID-19 pandemic. You can see in the left picture. In the top picture, before pandemic, the teacher can meet directly physically with the student, and also student can meet directly physically with the teacher. Interaction between teachers and students can dynamic, can directly interaction in the classroom. But now, during the pandemic, you can see in the second picture, the teacher, he has to prepare her presentation without student. But because his responsibility, the teacher has to teach the students, although in the different situation. And then in the last picture, the student, wherever they are, wherever they stay, they have to learn. They have to hear the teaching learning process from the teacher. And the gap between before pandemic and during pandemic is about the classroom. In the common activity, the classroom as a place during the learning process. But right now, the current situation without classroom, virtual media such as Zoom as a place during the learning process. But the important thing is interaction between teachers and interaction between student and student, student and teacher, teacher and teacher must be conducted, must be followed in this situation. So it means that whatever the situation, whatever the situation, wherever the students they are stay, so the teacher learning process must be carried out, and students still get the right to receive courses from the lecture. This is the important thing. Before pandemic and during right now pandemic, the teaching learning process must be conducted as well as should be. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, so what should be? If we talk about the human resources, it means that we talk about the people. If we talk human resources in the university, so it means that we talk about the teachers, we talk about the students, and also we talk about the educational staff. Three things that should be raised and three things should be followed that human resources can be improved, can be reinforced in the university. So what should be prepared? First, mastery of innovation. Yeah. As Professor Abhi mentioned, every day is the new opportunity. So it means that everybody in the university has to have the awareness in innovation. Yeah, right now the world is quite small. Right now the world is too small. It means that everybody has a responsibility to adapt with the current situation, and they can share their knowledge, they can share their ability with the new innovation. Everybody, every single person in the university has the new opportunity or the new responsibility how to improve their knowledge, how to improve their capability. So the second thing is about the networking. Again, right now the world is quite small. I can see everybody in this international webinar. I can see Professor Abhi in Malaysia, Professor Udiansyah in Kalimantan, Professor Huang in Taiwan, and also Dr. Anatoly in Toronto. It means that if we can make the networking, we can meet each other, we can encourage ourselves to bring our knowledge to join together, have the same responsibility, so we can build networking and we can make change the better life. And then the other thing is about the mastery of technology. Everybody right now, students, teacher, or educational staff, they have to master in technology. We can use WhatsApp, we can use a handphone, or we can use internet. So if we cannot use this technology, so it means that we cannot with adaptation with the new era, because the technology is mandatory to improve ourselves. And then the other thing is control of natural resources. Why? Because this is very important. If we have the innovation, we can adapt with the technology, and we have the networking. So it means that we have ability to manage our natural resources for the welfare of the nation, to build our nation become better and better. This is the very important thing about what should be prepared as the human resources. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, please see this picture in the right picture. This ant must be moved from side to the other side, and there is the gap. And how this ant can be moved from the side to the other side? Because there is teamwork, because one goal, because there is one vision, and because there is creativity and collaboration, as mentioned by Dr. Anatoly and Professor Abhi, that we are really need teamwork. We are really need collaboration with deep ethics, collaboration with deep responsibility. So this ant can be moved from side to the other side. Without teamwork, without goals, without collaboration and creativity, this ant cannot move from this side to the other side. And also as a human resources in the university. In the university, many smart person. So it means that we have to improve our capability. We have to improve our knowledge. We have to improve our skill, that we can minimize the gap. Why? Because teaching, learning process must be conducted, so teacher can teach their students. Student can get their knowledge from the teacher, using what? Using the technology, using the Zoom right now. So it means that the gap is can be minimized with the bridge, with the simple bridge, but very have the deep meaning. This is the Zoom, this is the CloudX, or this is with the technology. So the pandemic has forced university to bring their course online. Yes, of course, because teacher cannot meet directly physically with the student, but teaching learning process have to be done. So it means that the teacher has the responsibility to teach to the student using the technology like right now. So this is just one step along the road to a new educational paradigm. However, so I think all university around the world has the innovation how to teach, and how to human resources in the university can improve their capability. And also the last thing is we can expect a new model to emerge once COVID-19 has passed. As Professor Abhi mentioned in his presentation, maybe we can blended learning or physically direct learning. This is the paradigm. So it means the important thing is how the teaching learning process can be delivered from the teacher to the student. Yeah, next slide. Yeah. How does higher education human resources change? Yeah, of course, we have to adaptation with the current technology. We have to adaptation with the digital information. If we cannot adaptation with the current situation, it means that very, very hard because our students right now, it's students with the young generation. They can use WhatsApp, they can use internet line, they can learn from the Google, but the important thing is we as the teacher, we as the educational staff, we have to understanding of digital transformation. And then the second thing is M.Pd's faculty learning and a focus on employer branding. Yes, of course, we have to we have to promote our university. We have to promote our lecture. We have to promote our students for what? Yeah, to 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 give the information to the people that this is our university, this is our ability, this is our skill, so everybody can see, everybody can hear that this university has the capable teacher, this university has the capable product, this university has the capable student, something like that. Yeah. And then the last thing is about the globalization of higher education. Again, the world is quite small. The world is too small. So everybody as the member of university, teacher, educational staff, and also student must reinforce their capability. So human resources practitioners have to work even harder to appeal to candidates by incorporating international opportunities into their employer brand. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, this is my last presentation, and I want to close with my statement. Education is a conscious effort to educate the nation. Thank you very much, Rahma. Time is yours.
Dr. Dr. Agustinus Hermino, M.Pd, for your presentation. I think this is also really interesting and also important, and how human resources in higher education should develop their self and also their career. Resources changing because of this COVID-19 pandemic. And I took a note of your presentation. Should be in human resources, we need to master the innovation, the networking. Actually, in this pandemic, I think people can, because now of technology, especially digital technology, master of technology and control the natural resources. So I think that's so, and human resources is really important to for higher education in facing the COVID-19 pandemic. But a good quality human resources is need to be supported by the learning, an appropriate learning strategy. So we will go to our next speaker that will talk about the learning strategy. We have Professor Hsiao-Ling Huang. Hello, Professor.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, good afternoon, Professor.
Good afternoon.
Okay, so before you present your material, please let me introduce you to all our participants today.
Yes, sure.
Okay, so Professor Hsiao-Ling Huang is an associate professor at Yuanpei University of Medical Technology with more than 10 years experience, right, in the area of public health, and particularly focused on health literacy and health promotion. And he obtained, or he gained, she gained, or she obtained her Ph.D. from University of UK, specialized in health policy and management. And now she is as the Dean and also the Office of International Affairs Executive Director and also Office of Institutional Research at Yuanpei University. And she can speak fluent both in Japanese and also in English. Konnichiwa, Professor.
Konnichiwa.
I can only speak konnichiwa and ohayo gozaimasu in Japanese. Okay. Okay, so if you want to contact her, you can send her by email. By the email hl.huang@mail.ypu.edu.tw. Okay, Professor, are you ready?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
It's very clear. So please, Professor, time is yours.
Yeah, okay, we need the screen. Okay, hello everyone again. And it's my great honor to be here, invited by Sari Mulia University to talk about the strengthening student strategy in learning to improve student academic performance during the COVID-19 pandemic. When I received this topic, the first impression is very, very long topic. So I will divide my presentation into 5 parts. So my presentation outline, I will talk about the challenges of pandemic on university and what's the learning circumstances under the pandemic and how we promote student strategies in learning under COVID-19 and how we evaluate the academic performance the slightly different way compared to before the pandemic, and my conclusions. Okay, so everyone knows schools are stopped and many challenges university are facing. And university operation worldwide encounter 3 major impacts, including many institutions globally were focused to transfer from face-to-face lecture into digital learning providers in a very, very short time. And educators, even including myself, are not really 100% well prepared to move to the online operating model. And the universities are increasingly encounter with new dimensional challenges. For example, how to interact with the students, how to engage with the students. So these 3 challenges all over the world, the university face. But we are lucky in Taiwan. Universities in Taiwan are only among very few countries. The schools at all levels remain officially open. So how we did it and how we overcome all the challenges, including the university level and the student level, and also including faculty members. And let me tell you the story of our experience. So some of the experience may be the background of our setting, because we are very strong in big data, and the data is quite transparency. So if you can look at the slide on the left-hand side, we can register to the line which is issued by the government. So you can get the information every day at 2 p.m. and you will have full information. So you are less panic and less uncertainty about what happened in Taiwan, in the world. And our IT expert also developed the application to track local mask supplies. So at the beginning of the outbreak, everyone wanted to buy as many masks as possible. So the society itself seems a bit panic and uncertain. So government noticed this. So we even have the central command, and this man, Dr. Chen, he is the Ministry of Health, and he is also the consultant of our university. He will show on the TV every day at 2 p.m. and issue all the guidance for schools, for workplace, for the hospital. And for the university, I think we start our e-learning system 17 years ago, which you may notice the year which SARS outbreak happened. So at that time, it was our first time to encounter the pandemic in such a very short time. So university were panicked and did not know how to do. Even the government, from the central government to the local government, we had very, very messy period when the SARS outbreak. So since then, university start to prepare with good e-learning system. So this is just a photo to show you the students could use their smartphone on the screen and get to learn all the materials downloaded to their smartphone. And from the backstage about the score, student score, which I will mention in detail on my
Sorry, Professor.
Yeah.
Your PowerPoint slide doesn't run. Okay.
Does it?
Okay, it was stuck on the first slide. Okay, now it's good. Please.
Okay, is that okay?
Okay.
Is that okay now?
Yeah, it's okay now.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so we learn e-learning system since outbreak of the SARS. So it's been 10 years. So this is, I must say, the good way we learn from the experience. And currently the learning circumstances under COVID-19, because as I mentioned before, all universities in Taiwan continue to open, but very, very restrict measure every day. So if you go to the school every day, you need the temperature would be measured for everyone when entering the university. So we have many, many volunteers, even teachers as we need to stand on the main gate to measure everyone's temperature. And students can take sick leave when feeling unwell. So before, if you student want to take sick leave, you need to have the proof of, say, for example, seeing the doctors. But at this moment, during the pandemic, if you don't feel well, you stay at dormitory or stay at home. So it is allowed. So we lose the system and the core system. Okay, and we still have face-to-face lectures continue to deliver, but the rule is everyone needs to wear masks in the class. But if the lectures with student numbers exceeding 100 numbers of the student, you need to start the online learning model. And social distancing needs to be maintained in every place, such as meeting room, where students cluster in cafeteria. So if you could see from the photo, this is our meeting room, and you could get the distance from another person. And this is some pictures in my lecture. I need to go for the auditorium for my lecture. So students need to sit in front of the teacher in such distance. And on the right-hand side, the teacher needs to wear a mask when they deliver the lecture. So these all clear guidance for universities are all from our central government. So every single university need to follow. So this is the case during the outbreak in March and April. So under this kind of the learning circumstances, what happened to students? So I would like to mention about the strategies in learning under COVID-19 pandemic. And our University Consultation Center issued 4 key points, which are manage your mind and stay focused, be curious, and keep fit. First, to manage mind means some of the lectures will go online and you don't need to come to school or come to the classroom. So you do independent study. And some students actually talking about the difficulty to do the independent study at home. So many things to worry, the internet connection, and they feel lonely. So we also have the emotional support programs and the panic reduce program, all delivered by the consultation center in our university. For example, we have meditation program, we have Tai Chi, we have deep breathing exercise program for every member of the university. And some students even ask us how to efficiently study at home and how to stay focused. So the expert provide this technique, and some of you may heard about this called Pomodoro technique. Pomodoro is the Italian word for tomato, and this is kind of the timer which used to calculate the time. And the Pomodoro technique, shortly explained, is something like this. So you need to decide what subject you are going to study and set the timer to 25 minutes and work on it. Maybe you need to disconnect your internet, and after 25 minutes, you get the 5 minutes break, and you continue this routine for 4 times and take a 15 to 30 minutes break. So this kind of way could also get the sense of self-discipline. You make it, and self-motivation, and also self-regulation, what to do next. And also you will enjoy, you get something done, and the self-achievement. So this is the second point, stay focused. And also we tell students to be curious. What does it mean by be curious? You will encounter a lot of new things. So as we say, new normal. So life will not be the same as before. Nothing will be same as last year. So you need to get used to this new normal. Maybe like in our society, you need to wear the mask for most of your time. If you go to take the public transportation, if you don't wear mask, you will be rejected to get on board. And also new thinking. Because of these circumstances, you will grow your new thinking, new way of learning, of course, online. And maybe you will become very enthusiastic about online learning, and you will have your potential to become YouTuber maybe. And you will have new finding of yourself and the way how to study. Finally, to keep fit. This is also advocated heavily by our university, because our university is focused on health and medicine. So everyone needs to learn simple daily physical exercise you can perform at home. And that will keep you not only physically activity in the good level, but also emotional stability, which can minimize the risk of COVID-19 infection. So this is also very important learning strategy, although it is not directly related to your study subject. And then I moved to explain some experience and ideas about the academic performance, focus on the evaluation. So I will talk about how to evaluate, what to evaluate, and when to evaluate. So how to evaluate? I think every university have this kind of evaluation by the end of the semester. But before, we may, like our university, Yuanpei, we heavily focus on the quantitative perspective of the feedback and the evaluation. So students can self-assess how well they learn this subject. They can rate from low to high. So this is kind of the questionnaire format. But during the pandemic, we start to shift the focus on qualitative information. We open the e-learning platform to let students to write the diary and to take the notes. And even they can chat with the consultants. And even we interview students, how do they learn, how they feel, and if they need to study at home, how do they effectively learn at home. So if you could see from the slide on the right-hand side, this was the interview I conducted with a small group of the students to ask them how they feel about the study, what the difference and what's the difficulties they encounter, and what to evaluate. Evaluate factors are slightly different from the previous. At the previous time, we were focused on contents of lectures. So how much the student could observe or how much student could learn, and also the learning materials. So if you could see from the slide, on the right-hand side, you will see a video watching. So the learning material heavily include the video watching in this moment. And also we have the individual scoring system. So we conducted online examination, and we, at the backstage, teacher could understand how well the individual student learn. And the third one is to evaluate classroom arrangement. As I said before, because if the student number exceeds 100, you need to make it online or divide students into 2 classrooms, minimize the contact. So classroom arrangement changed almost every month because we need to follow the guidance of the government. So how do students feel about classroom arrangement? We also did the interview. And third, finally is the online examination. We used to have the mixed method, paper-based examination or presentation or online examination. But this semester, most of the teacher shift the examination into online setting in order to make sure some students may stay at home and they need to do the online examination to keep the fairness of everyone.
Sorry, Professor.
Yeah.
5 minutes remaining.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is the distribution of student score. So you could see how well student did it, and the teacher will notice whether this score correlated to the place of their study. So for example, if the student got the 48 points, does she or he study at home? So we start to do some statistical analysis to understand any significant effect on those students who study at home. So this is also the individual item. You can check how well the student did from the backstage. So this is kind of big data analysis. So this is the diary, which I mentioned. They can post freely on the e-learning system. So we maximize the space for students to submit their feeling by word. So this is the example of the feedback from the student. This student saying she thanks to so many teachers to take turns to deliver. And even due to the COVID-19, we shifted the classroom several times and even applied the video conference lecturing. But she still appreciate all the extra effort teachers devote to the teaching. So we know they are getting used to, and we know the positive feedback from students. So we evaluate for every student during midterm, final term, and the message board is open all semester through the semester, so they can post online. And for students, they take sick leave, we will ask them to do the diary or to submit the notes when they return from sick leave. So we divide the student into 2 groups. So this, so my conclusion will be followed by 4 points. So clear guidance from the government in Taiwan, university all well prepared before the student returning to school soon after the COVID-19 outbreak. And teachers at Yuanpei in our university were informed and mentored by the IT experts to learn various online teaching models. Although we feel quite disabled to learn a lot of online teaching material, but we do our best to learn. And students were adapted quickly with the online or application mode of learning system. And some of students actually saying quite enjoy the way of the learning system because they don't need to dress up to come into school, but they can learn at very comfortable situation or circumstances. And finally, emotional and physical health were catered by our university expert during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think, I think these are some parts of the information I want to share, but because of the time limitation, so I stopped here and thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Hsiao-Ling Huang, for sharing your idea, and also that is really interesting presentation. I think how you present the situation in higher education in Taiwan, how the university is still open with strict health protocol, and also how to do the learning strategy for the student, like manage their mind, stay focused, be curious, and keep fit, because being fit is also the key of the education. And also your conclusion is the government gave the clear guidelines that will be that can be implemented by some universities, and online teaching models, and then application-based learning system, and also how to keep our emotional and physical health in the context of higher education. Okay, so I think all of the speakers have presented their topic, and thank you very much for all the speakers. Now let's get to the next session. It is a discussion session, and our committee have just chosen some question and combine it into one general question to be discussed by all the speakers. So we will not ask the question one by one to all the speakers, but we combined all the some questions into one question that can be discussed by all the speakers. And our committee has just prepared the question based on the questions that the participants gave in the link and also the Q&A chat box. All right, the first question will be, as we know that this COVID-19 pandemic forces some higher education institutions to close and also to keep their students study from home. But of course, we cannot wait until this pandemic ends, because we don't know when will this pandemic end. So to manage or to run the higher education institution in this situation, or some of us call it the new normal era, what should university do? What should prepare? And then also how to arrange the learning and teaching process in the classroom, maybe how to use the digital technology in classroom during this COVID-19, and also how the university manage human resources to implement physical distancing, of course, because some university or some higher education is still open, like in Taiwan, that so the physical distancing should be applied, should be implemented in some universities. So first, I think I want to ask Professor Udiansyah. Hello, Professor.
Hello. Yes.
Okay, so Professor, what do you think about this phenomenon in this new normal era? What should university do to prepare, to arrange the classroom, and also to keep the health protocol in this new normal era? Please, Professor, time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this is the problem of Indonesia, mostly in Kalimantan. Usually in remote area, is the network is the problem also. So some students maybe should be get more effort to make to get the network, because the studying based on online system, something like that. That's why maybe the government should be prepare the network for in order the student can get easily the network from their home. I think this is the problem. Also, the second problem is the quota of the student. Yeah, this is that's why maybe our government get subsidized to the get subsidized to the student, and other the student still get learning from their lecturers, something like that. I think.
Okay, so the government has prepared to face the new normal era by preparing the internet connection and also the internet data, Professor, for all the students in the university. Okay, so that's in the context of Indonesia. What about in Malaysia, maybe? Yeah. Okay, what about in Malaysia? So I want to ask Professor Abhi. Hello, Professor.
Yeah, hi Faisal.
Okay, Professor Abhi, what do you think about this phenomenon in the context of, maybe in Malaysia, or maybe if you can talk about in general?
Sure. And the thing is that I'm probably not going to tell everything, because if it's the same question to all the panelists, by the time it reaches Prof. Huang, she may not have that many. So I'm just going to respond to what Prof. Udiansyah mentioned regarding network. So of course, we want to increase broadband penetration, to as many people as possible, and what have you. But we know that will be a long-term strategy rather than a short-term. It's not going to solve the problem, for the students that we have. And I showed you the picture of the Malaysian student who actually went up on trees to get the best internet connection in Sabah, and essentially spent hours in the tree. So for at Sunway and many of the universities in Malaysia, so after a couple of months, the first few months in March and April was very scary. Was the virus being transmitted by air? Is it water droplets? Can it be on inanimate objects? There was just so many things that we didn't know. But over time, we realize now that although the infectivity and the mortality rates haven't actually been clarified yet, but we know while COVID-19 causes serious harm, there's actually a lot of factors that get involved. For example, we now know the threat of asymptomatic carriers are not as dramatic as we thought they were. There is still a risk, but it's not that big. The second thing is that we now know that face masks are really effective as at least a first barrier. The third thing that we also know is that that there are people who are at high risk. And if you actually can break that chain, and I thought Professor Huang in a great presentation showing all the different steps that you can actually make, it's actually not that unsafe to actually welcome students back. So the first group of students that we actually brought in, even before the ministries said that they can come in, even though all the classes were still online for the first few months, we allowed students who actually had trouble accessing internet to come back into our campuses. So they didn't come for any physical classes, but they were able to use our high internet Wi-Fi, and therefore they were able to do that. The second one is, but this is not applicable to everyone who might not be able to travel, right? But then we knew that, and so therefore accommodations were provided for them, of course. But the other thing that we also realized is the first few weeks when we embarked on online education, a lot of it was live lectures. So what we did was decide to do asynchronous lectures, which means all online videos were actually taped. And so basically, because what we found out is that in Malaysia, the data plan that many students are on is that certain times of the day, in the morning, afternoon, it's very expensive. And then at night, it's cheaper. And also because it takes a shorter time to download it. So the amount of time that they take, you know what I mean? So we did all kinds of things from initially, my first videos was with my face and lots of animations and very well written, to then we changed it to even just an audio recording. So at least the students can actually get, so depending on what they needed. So I think this is where I was trying to get to, one size doesn't fit all. There will be systemic policies that we can set for maybe our children and grandchildren to benefit. But locally, there's so much that we can actually do. And it's all about balancing risk. Is the COVID-19 risk there? Absolutely. But what's the risk of depriving certain kids of their education? And as Professor Huang said, I think the biggest threat for us was the mental health of the students. Which basically, if we didn't intervene, that might have been a bigger risk than actually the COVID-19 on them.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Abhi, for your answer. I think that answers all of questions I gave before, from how the students can get the Wi-Fi on the university, but it's hard for them. But if it's hard for them, so they can access it from another area, and also some policy that is implemented in Malaysia, especially in Sunway University. And what about in Taiwan? What about Professor Huang?
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So, what do you think about this question, Professor? How I think your presentation have also covered this question, but maybe you have some further sharing about how to implement the physical distancing in the area of university.
Yes. Thank you for the question. And I think the answer to this question is very difficult because students always want to cluster and they want to get together and they want to play together, eat together. So when we start to put the notice about social distancing, they were quite angry and they say, why should we do? But we say, central government told us to do that, so you need to follow. So very difficult, but we try to educate students. If you change your behavior, you will benefit yourself and your surrounding people. So that is very important public health message. You not for yourself, but you benefit for others. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the answer. So it's also the policy of the regulation by the government, right, to do the physical distancing. So we need to give them explanation more and more about the benefit of this physical distancing. Yes. Okay, what about Dr. Anatoly Oleksiyenko? Hello, Dr. Anatoly.
Yes.
So, yeah, in your perspective, what do you think about this phenomenon actually? How the university face this new normal era in the aspect of the university, the facility, and also the learning maybe. So please, time is yours.
Thank you. Let me just probably say that my perspective is pretty much the perspective of somebody who works in what we call the world-class university, research-intensive university where responsibility is pretty much placed on faculties and departments, and even more so on individual faculty members. So that was before, really. I mean, just we would argue that in some disciplines, like probably in the medical profession, there is probably more regulation and coordination with the state agencies or central agencies. In smaller units in social sciences, it may be very different in terms of how we understand and how we organize our classes, how many people we admit to our courses. We are research intensive universities, so we usually don't admit too many students. And this allows us to have more distance in the physical space between the students, right? So, but recently there's been more concern about how we arrange that some of these small groups that were sitting together don't really have these kind of clusters of students, especially in Chinese culture, where students try to, flock together in some way and stay together and be separated by some kind of language, culture. They try just to be very close, right? So how do we create those types of distances, smaller distances, not the general idea of this kind of social distance as a philosophical term, but this like distance as Professor Abhi showed through this smart cutouts in of these famous people. It's kind of a very smart idea actually. So and in that regard, I guess we are not there yet, but at the same time, the administration has been discussing a lot. Our faculty members are engaged to offer all kinds of ideas, and we are invited to do that. But at the same time, I don't think we are all in the same format, in the same kind of style to answer this particular problem. So one of the answers questions was there just to talk about the the modes of teaching that we are engaged in. Should they be all if we talk about the teaching in the future, right? And we just resolve that. Should we be back to normal teaching without distance, without this online learning? I don't think so. I think this is a marvelous opportunity for us to learn how we operate in this kind of new format. Because if new pandemics come, we should be really even at a better stage or more sophisticated stage of interactivity, of social cohesion. So we should conceptualize this particular problem as a problem. I think, in the current situation, we also learn as teachers. We learn as learners what it really means to work across all these types of, niches in which we exist now, across all these bubbles in which we currently exist, right, and communicate. Does it really affect our communication to that extent that we cannot really be acting together anymore, or feel really depressed, frustrated, inactive, apathetic, or whatever? Like, what? So I think that's pretty much the software of what we do is probably very important to think about as much as the hardware of all these new solutions that we look for.
Okay, thank you very much for your answer, Dr. Anatoly. And I think the regulation and the policy of learning strategy in the new normal era facing COVID-19 pandemic Of course, we need an appropriate regulation and also the strategy to face it. But the strategy and also the regulation should be supported by a high quality of human resources. So I want to ask Dr. Agustinus Hermino. Hello, Dr. Agustinus.
Yeah.
Okay, so
yes.
okay, what do you think about this phenomenon in the perspective of human resources? Because yeah, we have regulation. In every country has the regulation. But what about the readiness of the human resources? Please, time is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Faisal. I'm really interested with what's already mentioned by Professor Huang regarding mental healthy students. I want to share my experience in this university, in Sari Mulia University. Most of our students in our university, most come from the remote area in Kalimantan Islands. So start from March 23rd up to June 13, all teachers and all academic staff, we are work from home, and also for the students. So it means that we have to make the policy from the university. So our policy is for the students, we have to serve about the teaching learning process. So our decision is we have the contract. We have the contract with the telecommunication industry. We have to pay around $9,000 per month. $9,000 per month. We have the contract with the telecommunication industry, and we share this pulsa to the students. So when the students, wherever they are, whatever they do in their hometown, they can get the teaching learning process directly from the teacher. So it means that as the human resources policy, the policy from our president is every teacher must has the innovative. All teacher must has responsibility to serve the students using the Zoom, because the university has give 9,000 per month to student, and also to the student they can teach to the student. That is the one point. And then the second point. The second point, start from June 15, teachers and also educational staff must be entered to the campus. Why? Because we have to work. Because we have to finalize our job. But we make a very strict, healthy protocol. Very strict, healthy protocol, so everybody can save. Everybody can maintain their health. As Professor Huang mentioned, we have the distance from one chair to the other chair, from one distance to the other distance. There is a gap. So it means that mental healthy for staff in our university is very, very important. Yeah, that is my explanation, Faisal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Agustinus, for your answer regarding to the question. So a teacher should be ready to face this new normal era with the facility that has been provided by the university, and also the regulation that has been provided by the government. And also in Sari Mulia University, we work from office, started from 15 June 2020, because we need to work, we need to achieve our goal, and we need to finalize our job. Okay, so thank you very much for all the answers of this first question. Thank you very much. So next, get to the next question, please, Mrs. Nur Rahmadani. Time is yours.
Okay, thanks, Faisal. So this is our second question from our participants. So universities around the world we now have closed their doors and move into their online classes to stem the spread coronavirus. So the effect of the condition are some students shoot to their university and asking for their money back. claim that students have paid for services they are no longer receiving, such as face-to-face interaction with their lecturer or professor, access to campus, facilitate and hands-on learning, as well as mandatory fees for activities. And extremely, a lot of students consider to drop out. So maybe I would like us to Prof. Anatoly, Dr. Anatoly. So Dr. Anatoly, so what is your perspective with this question? So maybe how can school or university support holistic student needs to promote attendance and learning during in this current situation?
Yes, it's been actually the problem everywhere in terms of how universities or calculate fees or compensation for the fees, and how they communicate the problem of calculating fees in the new environment to their students. So I've been involved in a number of these discussions, and I feel like it's a problem for administrators to speak directly to the students, because in each particular discipline there are different costs involved. Some students work in very research intensive, infrastructure heavy types of educational projects or research projects. Others actually don't have the same type of research intensity or infrastructure engagement, right? So the medical professionals or humanities students are totally different type of communities of learners and practitioners, right? So I guess in smaller universities it's easier to deal with that and find a common kind of denominator, but in very large campuses or with so many faculties, it's not easy. So usually it's left for the faculty deans then to communicate this message, and it appears that actually that the informational infrastructure becomes heavier and costly. Actually, not so. For students being away from campus, it doesn't mean that the fees or our costs get lower. It's not always true or necessary, right? Just because, as just Agustinus mentioned, the costs for paying all these kind of providers, are increasing, right? So that's why I'd say that in general, we can communicate well on that subject, I'm afraid. I'm sorry, just kind of. I had some throat problems, so just kind of, maybe somebody else can continue with that, sorry.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Anatoly. So, how about you, Prof. Abhi, with this current situation? So how can school or university support holistic, and are there dropout prevention policies that are being considered or should be? Sorry, please unmute your.
Sorry. On my.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So in general, I think Dr. Anatoly has already covered essentially what would the response be, and the response is always all about maintaining a level of transparency of actually what the cost of the education is, and then when students actually understand where the tuition fees are going, and then realizing that this idea that although we are now providing, some form of online education, we are not like the typical online universities that don't have the physical infrastructure and the human resource like, like what we have, which are campuses and things go on still, right? So for example, I teach in the Department of Biological Sciences. We didn't run any practical for the last 2.5 months. But that didn't mean that we didn't have to pay the salaries of the lecturers. Those reagents had already been bought like 3 months before that. So so the first one is transparency, to be very clear, where it is. Number two is then to communicate to the students that we are not actually shortchanging them. So for us, for example, we only had one semester where it was completely online. Our following semester in August is going to be where practicals will be done in campus, but lectures will still be online. Was that we have told all the students, even though they did simulated practicals, when they come back into campus, we are actually going to do special lab camps where they can then, do all those things which they perceive that they missed. So that we show that, and like I said, and I think, Anatoly, I thought his presentation on responsibility, ethics, and all of this, it comes back to this today, everybody wants to have this autonomy. What I realize is that when I'm communicating with my students, if I tell them that you should do X, the question is, why don't I do Y? If I ask them to do Y, they'll ask me, why don't I do X? So if it is possible and within the realms, what we should do is to say, you can do X or Y. And what you will find is that then students will end up choosing what you want them to choose anyway, but it's actually to provide them the choice rather than not, right? And so coming back to your question, the first one is to maintain transparency. The second one is basically to explain to them what the value of their education. And number three, to be as open as possible. One thing that we didn't really discuss, I've been very surprised by our students. I don't know what Professor Huang and Dr. Anatoly and Dr. Agustinus' experience has been, but I know that when we initially planned the assessments and whatever it is, when we reached the week 10, we were like, oh my God, we have made some errors. I mean, in the sense, we have given the students too much. And as long as you communicate with the students and you have town hall meetings, right? We were lucky to be able to identify these problems, and we tell the students, oh yeah, I think maybe we can change a little bit. I'm sorry. And students are happy. Even on days where the internet is down, whatever it is, students are, oh, don't worry, we can follow, a few hours later. My point is, that's why we go back to student-directed learning. If you are still treating our higher education students like school-going children where, you have to say, you have to come, I have to check attendance, I have to do this, it's not going to work. It was, at Sunway, we used to check attendance, physical attendance. But today we're asking, what is the point of attendance? Shouldn't it be how they perform in their quizzes or in some of the formative assessments, right? So sometimes we do a lot of things because we just do it because previously it was done. COVID-19 has definitely given us an opportunity to really think about, what actually matters.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Abhi. So to unload this problem, so we need the transparency, so explain them and then open up as possible. And then how about you, Prof. Huang? Okay, what is your perspective with this question?
Sorry, can you say again? Because the internet is not stable.
Okay. Our second question is the effect because some universities in the world have closed their door and moved to their online classes, right? And the effect of this condition are some students shoot their universities and asking for their money back. Claim that students have paid for services that they can get. So how can school or university support holistic student needs to promote attendance and learning during the current situation? As we know that we have online learning now, but a lot of areas don't have a proper or strong internet connection to do the online learning. So yeah, that's why some students asking for their money back. So they don't get they don't get the facility for their pet. Okay,
Yes.
so
yeah. Okay, thank you for repeating the question for me. And because in Taiwan, as I say, we continue our study in the university, so we currently don't have this question. Students don't ask for the money back, but who knows in the future what will happen. So my observation is, if we can tell students what we need to achieve, it will more than what you want to get return. So I think it's also the same as other presenters' view. We need to be more transparency and more more effort to explain to students, because nowadays students always want the quick answer and the short answer, which is not the case for the COVID-19. And for me, as the public health specialist, you need time to get used to this condition, and you need to get time to explain all the situation, what is happening. So whenever it comes to the money back or the issue, which is quite critical, you need to take time. And for teachers or university administrators who disseminate or to tell the student, you need to be emotionally stable, because maybe you will get angry by the reaction of the students. So you yourself need to be more emotionally controlled when students want to fight for their right, but this right is not correct. So you need to explain in more detail. And I totally agree with the idea of attendance is not like physically be in the classroom, because even the student in the classroom, but their mind is not in the classroom, there is no use. So what we do with my colleagues is to make sure what's the best way of student learning and personalize their learning skill and the learning technique. And that's all my answer. Thank you.
thank you, Prof. Huang. So how about you, Prof. Udiansyah, with this question? Money back and
I think this is a difficult situation, I think. So like in United States, in America, there is what university? JFK University is already closed. So even though in Kalimantan mostly the university is private university, the funding should be from the student. If the student should ask to send back the money to them, maybe the university, especially private university, will be collapsed also. So, as Pak Agus mentioned before, there are subsidies for the quota into all UNSM students. I think this is also expenditure for the university. So many problem also, like the students should do not think that the university develop the infrastructure for something, building. Actually, might be they lending from the bank. It should be paid. What from? Should be paid the credit. Should be from the student also. If the student get their money, so I think the university will be collapsed. Yeah, I think as also Prof. Abhi mentioned before, that if the students not difficult to get a network, internet, something like, they come to the campus and using the facility Wi-Fi from the campus. Also, this is should be a cost expenditure from the university. The student can using the infrastructure for the university, not just stay at home, something like that. I think also Anatoly said this, Abhi said also should be just transparency from the university to the student. I think that's all.
Thanks, Prof. Udi. Okay, oh, okay. That's just for answer for our student that asked that. Oh, I just have a cell phone. I don't have internet connection. So yeah, just don't stay at home. Just don't stay just at home. So how about Dr. Agus? So what do you think about this problem?
Yeah. I am in the policymaker in this university.
Okay.
So I have to say, frankly speaking, yeah. In my university, transparency and communication is very, very penting. But not only for the students, we have to explain clearly to the foundation. Yeah, because money not come only from the students, but there is the support from the foundation. So it means that transparency and communication in two lines. The first line is to students, and also the second line is to the foundation. And then we have to serve our student as well as should be. So it means that we meet with the student executive board, because in Sari Mulia University and also in all university in Indonesia, we have the student executive board. We explain to the head of student executive board about the situation of the campus, the situation of the country, and then the student executive board can give the information to all students. Yeah, and then not only for the student executive board, we also improve the role of academic advisor. Yeah, so in our university, there are two lines again. First, to the student executive board, and then the second thing is about the academic advisor. So academic advisor can explain to the students. They can explain to avoid the dropout, as Professor Abhi mentioned that the drop-off is very, very hard. Yeah. So it means that in our university, there are two main roles: student executive board and also academic advisor. But transparency and communication should be clear to the student and also to the foundation. Yeah, that's Rama. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Agus. So, okay, this is our last session. Thanks for everyone who's still with us. Okay, thanks for all the speakers. We are lucky to have you, all of you today. And I hope we always healthy and safe. And hopefully this pandemic will end soon. Okay, so before we go to our last agenda, so please stay with us just a minute, because we have message from our Vice President for Academic Matters and Student Affairs of Universitas Sari Mulia, Mrs. Angrita Sari, SIT, M.Pd, M.Kes. Hello, Mrs. Angrita.
Hello, Rahma.
Okay, how are you?
I'm fine.
Okay, so the time is yours now.
Okay, thank you, Rahma. Thank you. Thanks to all the participants and the international webinar community of Sari Mulia University. On this occasion, I would especially like to thank Professor Dr. Udiansyah, Prof. Abhi Veerakumasivam, Prof. Anatoly Oleksiyenko, Prof. Hsiao-Ling Huang, and Dr. Agustinus Hermino, who have been willing to share their time and knowledge with us at the international webinar events with the name of Strategies of Strengthened University to Enter New Normal during the COVID-19 pandemic, so that we can gain more knowledge about managing education, choosing appropriate learning strategy, increasing human resource motivation to be innovative and creative in the pandemic era. Moreover, we also hope this webinar can help up the maintain the quality of education to continue producing quality graduate amid the COVID-19 pandemic in the future. This webinar has been held in collaboration with 3 universities, namely Hong Kong University, Sunway University in Malaysia, and then Yuanpei University of Medical Technology in the Taiwan. We apologize for any shortcoming in the inconvenience in this webinar. Hopefully, we'll be able to meet again all the resource persons and participants on the future events that Sari Mulia University will organize. Representing the Indah Banjarmasin Foundation as the founder of University Sari Mulia and the entire UniSM academic and community, allow me to convey warm regards. I am Angrita Sari, Vice President of Academic and Student Affairs. Thank you, keep healthy, success for all of you. See you later and bye-bye.
All right, thank you very much, Mrs. Angrita Sari, SSIT M.Pd MKes, as the Vice President of Academics and Students Affairs of Sari Mulia University for your message. And Amin for all the prayer that you have said before. And so I think this is the end of our webinar today. So I would like to say thank you very much one more time for all the speakers. Thank you very much, Professor Udiansyah. Thank you very much, Professor Abhi, Veerakumasivam.
Great
and
job.
Also, thank you very much, Dr. Anatoly, Oleksiyenko, Ph.D. And also, thank you very much, Professor Hsiao-Ling, Huang. And also, thank you very much also for Dr. Agustinus, Hermino, M.Pd. And also, thank you very much for sharing your idea, your knowledge, and also your experience. And thank you very much. And also, thank you very much for all the participants that have been joining this webinar until this end. And also, I want to thank all the committee for the hard work so that this event can be done. And for all the panelists, including the speakers, please don't leave this webinar first because we will have a photo session. So I want to ask you to turn on your video. Okay, so thank you very much for everyone. And I am, as the moderator with my friend, Mrs. Nur Rahmadani, want to say we really are sorry if we have made any mistake during this webinar. So, nice meeting you, everyone. Good afternoon and have a nice day. And don't forget to fill the evaluation form and also the attendance list to claim your certificate. Bye-bye. Okay, for all the speakers and also the panelists, so we will have a photo session.
Photo session.
So please, the committee take control.
Wow, I like your Kalimantan face masks. Very cool.
Yeah, Abhi, because if we meet more than 5%, the regulation and protocol, health protocol in our university must using the mask.
Yeah. Have a nice designs.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Mine is very boring, you see. Typical.
Yeah.
But the point is the use, Professor. Yeah. Yeah, as long as it's effective to avoid the COVID-19, so it's cool.
Don't diss fashion.
Anatoly, thank you so much, Anatoly. You are in Toronto.
Yeah, I'm Toronto. It's already 1:30.
Okay, so I should have said
from Professor
evening
in Toronto.
Yeah, just I had to teach. I last semester I had to teach at 6 o'clock in the morning because I was staying here and I had to teach my courses, which were 6 p.m. in Hong Kong. So for me it was 6 a.m. in the morning in Toronto. So my time was not usual last semester.
Yeah, yeah.
Prof. Huang, see you next year in Taiwan.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
So are we done with the photograph?
Not yet, Abhi.
Okay.
Not yet. Yeah. Prof. Huang, I think I will send the email to you because we will have the agenda, the Sari Mulia University and also Yuanpei University. I will send my email later.
For next year.
For next year.
Thank you for all the effort you've done, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, no, really good.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks for sharing as well. You know, it was really good.
To chair staffs.
Now I can say I've actually been to Kalimantan.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Abhi, you have to come to Kalimantan.
I already feel like I'm already in Kalimantan, so it's fine.
But actually, if Abhi come to Sarawak, as already Kalimantan.
Yeah, it was crossover, absolutely.
Virtual Kalimantan Island.
And also for your information, because in the 2024, the capital city of Indonesia will be moved from Jakarta to Kalimantan. So I think Kalimantan will be very famous.
I know. Will all of you be millionaires? Have you bought a lot of land?
Yeah.
Okay, so the committee has been done taking the photo of us.
Oh, they have? Oh gosh.
Okay.
Yeah, so they did it in a candid way.
Candid way.
Candid. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Abhi. Thank you, Anatoly. Thank you, Huang. Thank you, Prof. Udi. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah. Xie. Yeah. Anatoly. Yeah. Abhi. Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Prof. Huang, can you hear me, Prof. Huang? Prof. Huang? Yeah. Hello, Prof. Huang.
Hello.
Yeah, Prof. Huang, can we, do you have a little bit time for our short discussion, please?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Prof. Huang, thank you very much because I think 2 months ago or last month, I received the email from Celine, from Celine, about from Celine about our. Hi, Celine. Sorry, hi, Anna. Anna, Celine. Yeah. Hi.
We are all here because we don't stop our working.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Prof. Huang, last month I received the email from Celine about our collaboration between Sari Mulia University and Yuanpei University.
Yes.
We have the agenda to some of our students can